Welcome to the Cuda Photography Podcast, a podcast about nature and wildlife photography in your own backyard and throughout the United States. Well, hello from North Carolina. Beautiful sunny day here in North Carolina. This is episode 38, New Blinds and Bluebirds. Okay, so what's been going on in Matt Cuda's world? Well, I have had some problems with my website, folks. I don't know what's happened over the last year or two, particularly. The website has just gotten slower and slower and slower, and finally it just gave out. It was a website that I had built using a CMS called Cuda, and Cuda was a free CMS that uses a plugin model for adding, basically you don't pay for the website itself, you pay for plugins that go into it. Well, it never really did run that well with my current hosting service, and I was never pleased with the performance. It probably had something to do with a botched update or two from Cuda, where maybe the indexing on the database didn't get updated or something like that. And I just didn't have the time or energy to get in there and figure out what was wrong with it. And finally, the whole PHP side of things kind of imploded. And I just said, well, I'm done. I'm done messing with this crazy thing. I had just sent out a new direct mail piece to my customers, and the next day that stupid thing gave out. So, you know how that goes. So what I did was, I had already been working on a brand new website. I was only about a month into the project, maybe a month and a half. And so I hadn't had a lot done. So I quickly started developing the website. I got something together within a few days, and I put it out there. Now, it's not full featured yet. You're welcome to go out and take a look at it. It will have the podcasts out there. It will have my portfolio. It does not have galleries at this point. It doesn't have a shopping cart area. It doesn't have my blog, unfortunately. I got to figure out a way to get that imported into my new system. But fortunately, I am a software developer by day and a photographer by night and weekends. So I was able to quickly bang out some code in ASP.NET MVC, and it's a much, much faster website. It's going to be a much better website in the end, and I think you'll enjoy it, I'll enjoy it, and my customers will enjoy it better. So that's it in a nutshell. That's why this podcast is late, and that's why I've been having a lot of issues trying to get the podcast done, period. So lots going on in my world. On the photography front, pretty much it's pretty slow right now. I'm doing some backyard bird photography. I'll be heading north here in another couple months to do some serious bald eagle and osprey photography. Probably tentatively heading up to Shenandoah National Park to do some photography of newborn fawns and so forth. So, it's all there. It's on the agenda. Whether I get to it or not, depends on my schedule and so forth. But that's what I'm hoping for. But the main subject of this podcast, I wanted to share something with you that I've started doing recently, and that's creating a new blind. A blind, or a hide as they call it in Europe, is just simply a way to keep us hidden from our subjects, and so we don't scare them or make them uncomfortable with our presence. Up till now, I have pretty much been using pop-up blinds. And pop-up blinds, I've got an episode on them somewhere back, a few episodes back. Pop-up blinds are just simply a hunter's doghouse blind, or they even make an outhouse blind now. That's just a one-man blind, 2 men at most, and they cost anywhere from $50 to $100. And you can quickly set them up. They're just made out of nylon tent material, and you can quickly take them down. Quote, quickly take them down. Sometimes winding them back up into a ball again is kind of hard. I recently have gone down a totally different road with my blind building, and I wanted to share that with you because I think it's good and important, and I think you can benefit from it. I can't take full credit for this. I've seen other photographers use this technique in the past, and I had never explored it until now. So essentially, I've gone from a pop-up blind to a blind made out of PVC. Plastic vinyl. It's the little pipes that you get to do your plumbing with. Why did I decide to switch, first of all, from the smaller, more convenient Hunter's pop-up blind to a little bit heavier and a little bit more clunky PVC setup? First, I want to talk about that. And the biggest reason I did this was because the pop-up blinds just don't have any longevity. So if you put a pop-up blind in your yard, for example, after a year, it will have dry rotted. The nylon material on that is very similar to a tent material. And it's not designed for long-term use. It's designed to quickly pop up a blind and use it. And so that's not always convenient for us. Sometimes we want to have something in place longer. Sometimes we want a little bigger blind. Sometimes we want a little smaller blind. Sometimes we want a blind where we can lay flat on the ground and photograph at ground level. And the pop-up blind just was not satisfying those needs. And so that's why I'm switching to this other blind. Anyway, I want to talk about how it's made. Okay. Basically, you go to a hardware store, like Lowe's, Home Depot, somewhere that sells PVC pipe. And you buy, what I did was I kind of went more economical. I bought 6 10 feet long PVC pipes, 3/4 inch. I think it's a little sturdier than the half inch, and it provides you kind of the best of both worlds. It's not too heavy to where it's difficult to work with, but it's not so light that it sags. So 6 of those, 10 feet long. I got mine in white. You can always spray paint them to a green color or black color or something so that they blend in, or you can pay a little more money and buy the better PVC pipe, but I don't think it comes in as many sizes as the white does. If you buy the black PVC, I think you have to use the thicker, the diameter PVC. So you're talking about $2.40 per pipe, per 10-foot length pipe. You can also buy them in 5-foot lengths, but they're a little more expensive. So that may be a little more convenient for you. What I ended up doing was cutting my 10 feet pipes into 5 feet lengths. And you can do that very easily. I mean, either with a hacksaw, or what I use is actually a pipe wrench. And what they are is they're a ratcheting, they look like a pair of pliers with a blade on them. And you actually put it around the pipe and you ratchet. You squeeze the handles together, and it actually makes a ratcheting action and cuts through the pipe. That's a really convenient way to do it. But again, a hacksaw will work. You could probably even use a jigsaw if you had to. You have to really hold the pipe steady though, because a jigsaw will kind of shake the pipe a little bit. Any way you want to saw it up, it doesn't really matter. The other thing that you're going to buy is, in my case, I bought, I'm building a 5-foot by 5-foot by 5-foot. So it's a 5-foot cube that I'm building. And the elbow fittings that you're going to need, you're going to have to buy 6 of these 3-way elbow fittings. And you actually have pipe going into 3 different directions. It basically makes a corner, your corners for your pipes. And they're about $1.60 a piece. It's this is going to end up being a little more expensive than, say, a pop-up blind, but it's going to be a whole lot more versatile in the end. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to buy is camo netting, camouflage netting. just like you would see the military use when they cover up a piece of equipment. Maybe it's thrown over a Jeep, or thrown up to cover a tent or something like that. That's the same exact thing you're going to want to use here. Now, be cautious here, because it's very difficult. You need to do a little math to figure out how much you're going to need to cover your blind frame. So when you buy your camo netting, take that into consideration. You're going to spend about $100 on camo netting, somewhere around there. It's not that cheap. It's not too bad. You can join pieces of it together with zip ties. So if you happen to order 2 small pieces, you can put 2 small pieces together. There are various grades of this. I've figured out that there are various grades of camo netting. Some of it is what I would call hobby grade, which would be maybe you're building your kid a tree house and you want to make it look, kind of like he's in the army or something, and you buy this. It's kind of a shinier looking. It's still camo, but it's kind of a shinier looking camo, not as high quality. You can get that kind of stuff. It's about $35, and you can kind of sew them. You can kind of tie them together and do it that way. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a perfectly valid approach. It may not be quite as camouflaged, but in my case, I don't particularly care. The way I'm using it right now, I don't particularly care if I'm concealed against a green background, for example. I'm more interested in concealing my movement from birds and still have, enough space and so forth. So there's the camo netting. Just buyer beware. There's various types. There's military grade, there's hobby grade, and there's everything in between. So do your homework on that. I can't give you a definitive company to use right now. I'm still experimenting with this camo. I will tell you that there is some very cheap stuff out there that I do not recommend. I can't remember the company, but it's somewhere around $35. You'll see it out there on Amazon and so forth. So you have your camo netting, so now we have our camo netting and we have our pipes. So you join the pipes together. You don't have to use glue, because unless you want a permanent structure. The beauty of not using glue, of course, is you can break it down very quickly, put it in your car. You can actually make smaller lengths of pipe and join it together with different types of pieces. And you can break it down into very small lengths and actually put it in a backpack, like on a frame backpack or something like that. So you could actually make it portable if you wanted to, and that's another benefit here. In my case, I wanted something that gave me maximum flexibility, but was still light enough to carry around and pull around. So it's all together. It's a frame. You just simply throw your camouflage netting over top of it. And what that does, of course, is it gives you concealment. Now, you have to understand a couple differences here between the pop-up blind and this blind I'm telling you about. This blind is designed to conceal movement, but it's not going to be 100% opaque. If you move too much in there, something's liable to see you moving around in there. Depending on how thick the camouflage is, how tight the holes are, and all that stuff will determine that. If you want to keep it held down, if it's a windy day, you can buy Velcro straps, which is what I'm doing. Velcro straps to actually Velcro it to the white PVC poles, and that will keep it from flapping too much in the wind. Obviously, the heavier the camo netting you buy, the less apt it is to blow in the wind, so keep that in mind. If you want to do a deluxe version of this, it would probably end up costing you $150 to $200 at least to do a kind of a deluxe version. I'm doing it kind of on the cheap right now, so I'm spending more like $100 to $150, something like that. But the advantages are, back to the advantages. You think about this logically for a second, okay? The sun is rising, and the light's coming through in the morning, so it's going to rise in the east. It's going to set in the west, right? In the morning time, I'm on the East Coast. I'm going to get that easterly sun, and I'm going to have my blind set up in a certain way that the sun is shining on my subject. On the one side of the blind, I have an opening, and I have let's say I'm photographing birds in let's keep this thing really, really simple here. I'm in my backyard. I'm photographing birds. It doesn't get any simpler than that. I've got a perch, or I've got a tree, or a bush. I've got sun coming in from the east. It's shining on my subject in the morning. I've got a slit cut in that camouflage for my camera to fit through, my lens to fit through. And I'm focused on that area. Now, as the sun shifts and starts to set, I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to have a slit on the other side. But I don't really have to do that here. I've got a light blind. I can easily just pick it up and drag it even while I'm in it if I wanted to a new location. Okay, I can do the same thing with a pop-up blind, right? Kinda, but not really. Pop-up blinds, you tend to have them, because they're easily blown over, you tend to have them staked down. And so then to move it, you've got to pull the stakes up, you've got to take it to the other side of the yard, and you've got to pound the stakes back in. You know, with this system, the PVC is heavy enough that you don't really have to stake it down. I mean, you could if it was really windy, but you don't really have to stake it down. You can just kind of drag it to the other side of the yard, and you're ready to go. Okay, that's the first convenient factor. The second thing that you have to think about is that it's much easier to shoot from various positions. So let's say I could actually have 3 perches set up simultaneously. I could have a perch on one side and a perch on the other side. Now, you might run into lighting issues there, but it gives you much more flexibility. I can build it in such a way that I can stand up if I need to. I can stand up higher or sit higher. The pop-up blind, you're kind of stuck at one elevation. You're stuck exactly where the manufacturer wants you. As a photographer, I don't necessarily like that. I might want to be in a prone position. So I can easily drop down to a prone position and cut a slit in my camouflage netting, a foot off the ground, and now I'm photographing the ground birds, right? The birds that, if you're photographing ground birds like robins or even cardinals and so forth, they'll get on the ground. They like the ground. And so that gives you that chance to get those birds. Thrashers, for example, are ground birds. Now you can get better shots of thrashers. It just sets you up in a very flexible environment. And because it's 5 feet by 5 feet, you have plenty of room to move around in there. I can actually lay prone and kind of curl up. You can make yours in a different way. You could make yours, 6.5 feet long and 4 feet wide, or however you want to do it. That's the great thing about these. And then if you want to, you can actually make it so you can mix and match various lengths and build whatever you want depending on what you're going after. I mean, you can do anything you want with this setup. It's completely flexible. I can't tell you how many times I was sitting in a pop-up blind and I thought to myself, I really need to be laying on the ground right now, photographing this robin in front of me that's got this, this particularly great species of a robin or something. It's really working to get worms, or, it made an interesting photograph, but you can't do it because you're limited by your blind. And I just did not like that. So that's the new blind and I think how it's going to work. The other advantage that I can think of with having, it can be an advantage or disadvantage depending on your scenario, is oftentimes we're photographing birds in the spring and in the summer, early summer, and that gets very, very hot. And these pop-up blinds get intensely hot inside because you're surrounded by vinyl and basically, some kind of plastic material like nylon or something. And it's blocking the wind from getting through to you. And sometimes you want the wind to get through to you. And so having the camo netting up allows some breeze to continue to flow through, and without making you too cold necessarily, but on hot days it can feel pretty good. So that's another advantage to this. Another advantage is you can leave the frame up and just take the camo covering off and pack it back into your van and go home or whatever. So the frame can stay. All right, it's not going to rot. That PVC is just not going to rot on you. But if you leave your camo covering on there, that can dry rot. So here's a perfect example of a more flexible system. Why would I want to use a pop-up blind and not this type of blind? I mean, that's certainly a valid question. Well, I mean, first and foremost, the pop-up blind is going to be lighter. So if you're going to have a long hike back into the backcountry somewhere, the pop-up blind makes more sense. Pop-up blinds can be used for emergency shelters. In case, you get stuck overnight somewhere by accident, you could actually use your blind to protect you from rain and the elements temporarily until you can be rescued or something like that. I mean, chances are that's not going to happen. That's kind of a far-fetched scenario, but it is an advantage. It protects you from the wind better. So if I'm out on a cold, windy day, I'm going to be protected to some degree from the wind. However, that's a catch-22, right? Because anything that blocks the wind can be pushed by the wind. So many times in strong winds, these pop-up blinds get blown halfway across the country. So the other advantage that a pop-up blind has is generally you are totally invisible with a pop-up blind. It's very difficult for anything to see you moving in there. So because of that, if you're using the PVC blind, you may want to actually still wear camouflage inside. Something that will kind of conceal your movement and break up, whatever silhouette might be left over. You probably don't have to, but, you could if you're really worried about it, or you're shooting very skittish animals like deer or something like that. So, but that's where I'm headed. That's my whole philosophy on blinds these days. And I think it's something, I first saw other photographers doing this, like Doug Garner and people like that. And I thought to myself, that makes perfect sense, actually, because it allows the most flexibility and not ease of use, but it gives you basically the best of both worlds. And remember that pop-up blinds were built for who? Hunters. Well, we're not really hunters. I mean, a hunter can sit in any position and shoot. It doesn't really matter, right? I mean, but we're trying to get a great photograph. So we're trying to get ground level and, maybe standing position in some cases. Or I could actually stand up in this blind. It's a 5-foot blind. I'm roughly 6 foot tall. So I can actually stand up if I need to. I can stretch a little bit. I can actually shoot handheld if I have to in here and stand up by cutting a slit higher up. Like I said, it's maximum flexibility that we're looking for. Anyway, so why did I even bring up this topic to start with? Well, I'm excited. I'm excited about the bluebirds. The bluebirds are here. They're always here, but the bluebirds are something that I look forward to photographing. I missed them last year completely. I have no idea what I was thinking. But they build nests in my yard every single year. And I have been responsible I have helped the process of spreading bluebirds throughout my area. And I have seen their numbers increase by probably 4-fold since I put in my bird bath and my bird houses. I have seen it increase and increase. But bluebirds are very tricky to photograph because bluebirds primarily do not like seed. They will eat seed, but they don't really relish seed. It's not what gets them going in the morning, okay? Bluebirds, they love two things. They love berries, like chokecherries, and they love insects. So, they might eat a spider, they might eat a beetle, they might eat a worm of some type, So you've got to attract them using that. Now, my experiences have been they don't really like dry mealworms. Right? They'll eat one on occasion, but they're not hyped up about it. Okay? So because of that, I don't worry too much about feeding them. Now, this year, I am going to put in some choke cherry trees and some various other things to try to attract berry-eating birds more. I'll probably talk more about that on a later podcast. But my car blind will not drive into my backyard because I don't want to drive my car in my backyard. It causes a lot of, ruts in my yard, and where the septic system is in my backyard, your vehicle could actually get stuck in there because it tends to be a little more damp. There's one part of my yard where the water tends to collect, and I can't drive my car there. So I had to come up with a blind system that would work for me. And that's what led me down this road, was the whole bluebird thing. And with bluebird photography, if you have a nest box up, then your problem's solved, right? If you have a nesting pair of bluebirds, you don't need a food source. You have a nest, and nests equal good photographic opportunities. Because what are they going to be doing? They're going to be coming into that nest box with insects, first of all. So you're going to get pictures of bluebirds with insects in their mouths. And they're also going to be coming in with nest building material. And so you're going to get possibly shots of that early on. So what I tend to do is I tend to put a perch close to their nest box. Not a perch that's heavy enough that a predator could get up on and possibly destroy their nest, but something that's light enough they can land on. But if a raccoon tries to go up on it, it's going to fall over, so, and I've actually seen this. I've actually seen where something tried to get up on that perch and knocked it down. So, you want to try to protect the nest as best you can, not encourage, you don't want to give your raccoons a launching platform onto the birdhouse. So that's what started all this, and that's what started making me thinking about, hey, I need a better blind to be able to handle this. I need something I can move. I need something I can, if I have to, maybe, for example, maybe the bird bath is getting a lot of activity from the bluebirds, and I want to put some perches near it to photograph them. And so maybe I just need to move my blind real quick, and I need to cut a slit lower so that I can photograph the perches on that. So you see where I'm getting at here. I want that flexibility, the various ports I can cut into my net at various levels to allow me access. And so that started this whole project anyway. I didn't really have a whole lot more to talk about. I just wanted to get this out there, and I wanted to talk about this whole solution that I came up with. And I think if you do it, I think you'll be happy. I think it'll work for you, and it may be a good alternative to your pop-up blinds. Okay, so one more thing, keep getting the word out. Keep using your social media. I mean, every time I post, the way I would love to see this work, and if y'all could just help me out with this, is the way I would love to see this work is when I post my podcast out there, which I do. I post it on Facebook, every time. And every time I put out a podcast, I post that it's available on Facebook. And what I would like to see is that every time I post that, you repost it on your social media. And that's how you get the word out and how things keep moving forward. Otherwise, we're going to start going backward, and we already have. Our numbers have started to fall. Part of that's my fault because I've been super busy lately and, haven't cranked out the episodes. But that's the only way we're going to stay on top of this. That's the only way that it's worthwhile for me to keep doing this, because frankly, I don't want to sit out here and just talk to hear myself talk. I want to talk to help further the wildlife photography community and get the word out. And because I'm not going to attract buyers this way. This is no way to attract buyers. I'm not doing this to get people to buy, my photographs. That's not how you do that. You don't do that with a podcast. I'm doing that just to help the community, keep us moving forward. There's some name recognition there. I'm not going to lie about that. But, buyers are not looking at my podcast going, wow, now I need to buy some photographs from Matt Cuda. No, they don't do that. Okay. This is strictly about the photography community. That's all this is. That's all it's ever been. It's about a way for me to show my photographs, how I did it, techniques that I learn, all of that stuff. So that's what I'm trying to do, is get my name out there so that other people can listen and learn, and we can share, and we can, email each other and all that stuff. I mean, feel free to email me. You're not bothering me. I mean, people do this all the time. I get emails fairly frequently, It's okay. That's why I'm here. I can't answer everything, but I can point you in a direction to get an answer sometimes. I had somebody email me about Nikon gear one day. Well, I'm not a Nikon expert, okay? But I know a Nikon expert you can talk to, okay? So, but do keep getting the word out. Go ahead and like my Facebook page. That if you like people get confused about my Facebook real quick. Facebook is where I generally post first, okay? And people get confused because there's my personal Facebook account, which is just me posting stupid stuff nobody cares about, political things, non-political things, funny pictures, all that goofy stuff. And it's a way to keep up with my family, okay? I very rarely post photographs or anything photographic related on that. My Matt Cuda photography page is where you would go to actually click like so that you can get my feed going. And then you can see when a podcast is released, or, my latest photographs, or where I'm headed, or any of that kind of information. So I wanted to kind of clarify that, because I think that's been confusing to some people in the past. They didn't know if my Matt Cuda was personal versus Matt Cuda photography. Yeah, Matt Cuda is personal. I'm not likely to accept your invitations, although I do on occasion. And then Matt Cuda photography is where we can chit chat, and you can see what I'm doing and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's all I had for today. Thanks for listening. Make it a great day, and get out there and enjoy nature. Bye-bye. Music for this episode was provided by Dr. Turtle.